Guys. For this lesson, if you want a copy of the story, a copy of the activity, the questions, in this lesson, we're not going to do the quiz, but if you would like a copy of the quiz, feel free to message me on Parent Square, and I will forward all of that to you. Today, we're going to talk about answering higher level questions in first grade text. What makes it a higher level question? A higher level question is a question where we really have to think hard about the answer, and the author leaves clues to the answer, but doesn't spell it out. Doesn't spell it out or tell us explicitly in the text. Okay, we have to figure some of that out on our own. And one thing that authors do is they use stories to try to teach us a lesson. Now, it's very rare that you'll read a book like the one we read today, and it'll say at the end, the lesson the author wanted you to learn was this, right? It's something we have to figure out on our own based on the clues the author left behind. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read the 4 questions, and then we are going to go back and read the story, and together I'm going to discuss the answers for these 4 questions at the end. Okay? The first question is, just like I said, what lesson does the author want the reader to learn from this story? The second question is, why is the stonecutter angry when he is the sun and the wind? Okay. The next question is, why does the stonecutter cry at the end of the story and wish to become a stonecutter again? And our last question is, why does the stonecutter keep making wishes throughout the story? Okay. And to answer all of these questions, what we're going to do is we are going to go back into the text and find the clues the author left behind. Okay. So our story is called The Stonecutter. Before we get started with the story, a really good idea is to preview that glossary. Okay, there are going to be some words in the story you might not be familiar with. The glossary is going to help us with those words. So the first word is emperor. An emperor is a man who rules an empire. Okay. Second word is Japan, and that's an island nation east of China in the Pacific Ocean. Okay. A merchant is a person who buys, trades, or sells goods. A spirit is a supernatural being. You might have heard of spirits and stories around Halloween time, things like that. A stonecutter, this is the person's job in our story, and our story is called The Stonecutter, so it's a pretty important word. It is a person who cuts or shapes stone. And the last one, wept. Have you guys ever heard of the word wept before? It's the past tense of weep, and it means to cry, often because of a feeling of deep sadness. Okay, so weep and cry mean the same thing. All right, so the beginning of our story. The story is called The Stonecutter. It's retold by Betty Yee and illustrated by Koa Lee. And words to know are all those words we just went over. Long ago, there lived a poor stonecutter in Japan. Every day he cut stone from a mountain. The stonecutter was proud of his work. He was very happy. One day he saw a merchant. All right, one of our words, a merchant. The merchant had many beautiful things. The stonecutter was sad. He did not have any beautiful things. I wish I were a merchant, he whispered. The spirit of the mountain heard him. Poof! He became a merchant. A month went by. One day he saw the emperor. The emperor had beautiful clothes. The stonecutter was sad. He did not have such beautiful clothes. I wish I were an emperor. I wish I were the emperor, he said. The spirit of the mountain heard him. Poof! He became the emperor. 2 months went by. One day he saw the sun shining brightly. Again the stonecutter was sad. The sun was stronger than he was. I wish I were the sun, he cried. Poof! He became the sun. Then wind blew a cloud over the sun. The stonecutter grew angry. I want to be the wind, he yelled. Poof! The stonecutter became the wind. He was still angry. He could not blow the mountain around. I want to be a mountain, he screamed. Poof! He became a mountain. The next day, he felt something cut into his side. It was a stonecutter. I want to be a stonecutter again, he wept. he became a stonecutter. He was very happy. And that's the end of our story. Okay. A story like this is called a folk tale, and it is meant to teach us a lesson. All right? You know what? Let's save that one for last. I think that one's really, really important. So maybe it's kind of a deal where we save the best for last. Why is the stonecutter angry when he is the sun and wind? Let's go back in our story and see. All right, when he was the sun, I wish I were the sun, he cried. Poof, he became the sun. Then wind blew a cloud over the sun. The stonecutter grew angry. So when he was the sun, he was upset because he realized the wind was, in a way, almost more powerful than him, right? Like the wind could make him not be as hot or bright. And then when he was the wind, I want to be the wind, he yelled. Poof, the stonecutter became the wind. But he was still angry. He could not blow the mountain around. So when he was the wind, he was angry because he couldn't do what? He couldn't move the mountain. All right? And so that's why he was angry during those two times. That question right there is probably, if I had to guess, the easiest one out of them all. In this book, the author does kind of come out and say why he was angry in both instances. And overall, he was angry because he couldn't do everything he thought he would be able to. He realized he wasn't that overall powerful, right? There was something that was still stopping him from reaching that level. Let's take a look at this question right here. Why does the stonecutter keep making wishes throughout the story? Now, this is one of those questions where the author doesn't come out and say, he kept making wishes because. That's something we have to figure out in our brain. Why did he keep making wishes? Okay. We just talked about when he was the sun, he became angry because the wind blew a cloud over the sun, right? And when he was when he was the wind, he grew angry because he couldn't blow the mountain around. And when he was, the emperor, he noticed the sun was bright and powerful and he wanted to be that instead. So if we go back to our question, guys, why does the stonecutter keep making wishes throughout the story? He keeps making wishes because he's never truly happy with any of the things he turns into, except for one thing, and we'll get to that later. But he realizes it's not as good as he thought, right? He keeps wanting something else and wanting more and wanting more. And he's just never truly happy. So that's why the stonecutter keeps making wishes, because the author leaves us enough clues that he's not truly happy because he wants to be something else. Another clue that the author leaves that he's not truly happy, well, right here. Again, the stonecutter was sad. Another time, in addition to a time before, he's sad again, right? He cried, I wish I were the sun. I want to be the wind, he yelled. Okay, crying and yelling is not something we do when we're happy. That's a couple clues that the author left behind that let us know that he is sad with what he is. Why does the stonecutter cry at the end of the story and wish to become a stonecutter again? Let's go to the end of the story and find out. I want to be a stonecutter again. Okay. If we go back a page, the next day he felt something cut into his side. It was a stonecutter. All right. And then he wished to become a stonecutter again. And he became very happy. Why did he want to become a stonecutter again? I don't see anywhere on these 3 pages where the author says he wanted to become a stonecutter again because. So we have to use some inferencing skills, which you'll talk a lot about in 2nd and 3rd grade. You've probably talked about them some in 1st grade. He realizes that the one thing that can, in the story, that is moving a mountain, that is powerful enough to move a mountain or change a mountain, is a what? Is a stonecutter. What he originally was at the beginning of the story. Okay? So that is the reason he cried. He's unhappy. He wants to be able to move mountains. Okay? He wants to be able to shape them. That to him means he's powerful. So he wanted to be, he realized that he was happiest maybe as a stonecutter. All right. Because all those other things he wanted to be, he realized they weren't all that they were cracked up to be, right? Does that make sense? He realized there was something bad about being each of those that he didn't realize before. What lesson does the author want the reader to learn from the story? At any point in the story, guys, does the author say, here is the lesson? No. In my opinion, I think the lesson is that you should be happy with what you have. You should find the positive in what you have. Because even though you might think being an emperor is really, really great, right? It's still not, in the emperor's opinion, as great as being the sun. So that's something he longs for. Being the merchant, right? He thought he would love to be the merchant. And then he sees the emperor's beautiful clothes, and then he becomes sad because he doesn't have beautiful clothes like the emperor, right? He just keeps wanting and wanting all these things, and none of them are what he thinks they'll be. So we really need to find the positive in what we already have, okay? Even if we don't have much, we're still blessed to have what we have, and we shouldn't be jealous about what others have, okay? I think that's the lesson that the story was getting. All right? So besides this one, the answer to all of these questions, we had to dig a little deeper into the text, okay? It was a little harder to find these answers. We had to use our background knowledge and make inferences. And that is, that's going to be really important now as a reader and all throughout 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all the way up. Even Mr. H today, well, I'm 31 years old, and the books I read, I still have to make inferences, okay? It just... it's a part of our reading identity, is being able to make inferences. All right. If you want a copy of the quiz, send me a message on Parent Square, and I will get that out to you guys. Other than that, that's about it. Okay. The author leaves us clues, and sometimes they don't tell us stuff explicitly. And it's up to us to figure it out based on the clues he or she left behind. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.